After over 40 years of the Accord being sold in America, let's go see if the new generation is still good. Right, so we are sitting in the Honda Accord, specifically the 2023 model. Now, I know this is not a 24 or anything like that, but the 24 only has a couple of updates in here to where it's not going to be a dramatic change. Okay, the interior is relatively the same. And also, this is rather a pretty popular trim level. This is, of course, the Sport, or I guess the really base model. How is this the base model? Well, number one, it doesn't have dual zone climate control. It doesn't have the big screen in the front. It does have a digital gauge cluster, so I guess it's an upside with that. It also has manually adjusting seats, and it doesn't have a bunch of other features in here that normally an Accord would have if it was loaded, okay? And to be really honest with you, it still doesn't feel like a base model in here. I have to give props to Honda that this is a bit of an upgrade. It does not feel cheap. It doesn't look cheap in here. And even when you use the toggles to use the switches and everything like that in here, it really doesn't feel that cheap in here. It actually is a massive upgrade to what Honda used to be in terms of quality and everything like that. Now, talking about the rest of the interior, I like the design of it. It reminds me of a Honda Civic, like every single Honda product nowadays. It's literally the same exact design, which it does have its goods and bads of, copy and paste precisely, but it looks good. I have to give to Honda, it does look good in here. Now, you also do have this small little 7-inch screen right up front. It is touchscreen. It is wired Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. This is not wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. It's possible that the newer 24 Honda Accords with the bigger screen does have wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, but don't count me on that. I don't know. But I know this particular one, the base model, 23, doesn't have it. So anyways, right down below, you're going to have a CVT automatic that's going to be powered by a 1.5 liter turbocharged 4-cylinder, which we'll get to in a little bit. And the rest of the interior, it's very simple in here, and it's really aesthetically nice. The digital gauge cluster right up front, it shows everything very well. It's a very good display. And at the same time, it doesn't look as cheap as some of the other products that are out there, like maybe Ford trying to do either too much, or other manufacturers that are just trying to do too much, and it just doesn't look right. This actually looks good in here, and it actually shows a great amount of information. You can actually toggle through whatever setting you want to actually show the right amount of information you really need. On top of that, right on the side, you're going to also have your normal window switches, mirror controls, your lock and unlock, and both of your windows in the front are going to be automatic for the base model. The high-end trims, not too sure. Anyways, right down in the center, of course, you're going to have the shifter, 2 cup holders, econ mode, auto start stop, like every single car nowadays have. You also do have your electronic brake and your brake hold. And pretty much after that, that's really it. There's really not that many features in this car. And to be really honest with you, it doesn't really need to show that many features. I mean, there's enough amount of stuff in here that you need that you're gonna just use on a daily basis anyways. And for this being less than $30,000, yes, I mean, it is a little bit pricey for this car not having really much features in here, but honestly, compared to cars nowadays being the average price of $40,000, this is not a terrible deal. And this car also has 7,000 miles in it, so I guess pricing is starting to make a little bit more sense. Is it still expensive? Yeah, I'm not gonna say oh, it's cheap or anything like that. It's still expensive, but it's not as terrible as some other vehicles that I've seen. Now, when it comes to the back seat, we're going to talk about the back seat briefly, and I'm going to jump in and let me show you. Right, so now we're sitting in the back seat. I'm going to talk about the sheer size of this Accord. Number one, this car is absolutely massive. I'm in the back seat in my own driver position, and I still have at least about an inch of legroom behind me. That's absurd, and I'm 6 feet tall, and for me to have that much space in a mid-size sedan, it's crazy to see how far cars have gotten and how much bigger they've gotten. For some, it may seem intimidating, but honestly, once we get into a short drive that we're going to go to in a little bit, it's not going to be really as intimidating. Now, yes, this car is extremely long, so obviously with this car being extremely long, it does have a long wheelbase. You do have a lot of space in the inside, and you do have a lot of trunk space. But honestly, parking this thing is not as intimidating as would, per se, maybe a mid-sized pickup truck with a long bed. It's not that hard to park this car. And even with the reverse camera that you have, it makes life a little bit easier. Now, talking about the rest of the back seat, you do have this nice, high-quality cloth material on the seat that does actually make it really comfortable. And at the same time, the seat is already kind of designed where you're slightly reclined back, and you really have a good amount of feel around here that you can sit very comfortable, especially on a road trip. I mean, if you're gonna take this car down in Miami or something like that, or anywhere else, if you're from a different state or so, which is like a 40-minute drive per se, you're not gonna feel terrible in the back here. You're not gonna feel claustrophobic. You're not gonna feel tired. You're not gonna feel exhausted or anything like that. This is extremely comfortable in the back. You have one window switch, and that's it in the back seat. You do have a center armrest in here that does show about 2 cup holders, so you could fit drinks in here, but that's literally all you're gonna have in the back seat of a base model Accord. There's really nothing much in here at all. I mean, it's a very bare bones Accord, but really, honestly, like, this is something that people really would get in the end of the day, because they don't really need that much features. I mean, they would be happy enough with Apple CarPlay, decent speakers, cold AC, especially down here in Florida. That's really all you need. That's really all you need. That's all I need. You know, and to be honest with you, with the stuff that this car does come with, even if it's really bare bones stuff in here, it is really nice. I mean, the space that you get in here is something that you can't get with a lot of other vehicles. I mean, even the Civic is pretty darn huge. The Accord is just another level up of just the sheer size that you get in here. So anyways, we're going to talk about the gigantic trunk that you get in the back, and we're also going to talk a little brief about the powertrains. Since Honda did change some stuff with the powertrains, I think it is important to at least talk about that before we get on the drive. Let's get to it. Talking about the trunk space, like I said, it is massive. This car has 16.7 cubic feet of space, and also with the ability to actually put the seats down. Now, of course, it's not going to be as big or as wide as an SUV, but for a sedan, this is pretty big. And powering this Accord is going to be 2 engine options. This particular one has the staggering 1.5-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder that is mated to a CVT automatic transmission. Only produces 192 horsepower, 192 pound-feet of torque. And then you have the hybrid. It's going to be obviously with an eCVT, has 143 horsepower and 247 pound-feet of torque, which is a respectable number. Now, obviously, efficiency is going to be phenomenal with these things, but the 2-liter turbo is completely gone. All right, so we're going to be taking off in the Accord. Now, to start off, as you know about the powertrains and everything, the 2-liter turbo is gone for the Accord. All you get is either a 1.5-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder with a CVT, or you get the hybrid one. And it's not to say that I'm complaining about it, because I have driven an Accord with the 2-liter turbo. It is a monster of a car. And yes, if you tune it right and you put the right tires, it could compete with a Mustang, which is absurd for a 4-cylinder Accord. But anyways, those type of days are gone, and this is what you get. And to be really honest with you, the people that honestly get the Accords don't really need to race them. And this is exactly what they did for this generation Accord. Do I miss the 2-liter turbo? Of course I do. Do I even miss some of the design features that the old Accord had? I do. I'm not a crazy fan of the way this thing looks on the outside. At the front end, it looks a little bit derpy. The rear end, it looks better in my opinion. I will say that, but that's the only good sides about the car. It looks boring. You know, the entire car looks boring, but honestly, the main customer that's going to buy an Accord wants something that is just a conventional sedan. And that's exactly what Honda did. And it's not a bad design of what they've done. It is literally a conventional sedan. And when you jump in the inside of the interior in one of these things, you're going to see that it is a massive upgrade to the Accord. I mean, yes, it does remind you a lot of a Civic if you sat in a smaller Civic and everything like that. You know, the AC vents and everything. I like the designs of it. I really did like how they made it look in the Civic already. And to be really honest with you, it looks really good in the Accord. And honestly, driving this thing around, even though I'm not able to take this on a highway or anything like that, I can tell that this is a really good highway getter. And this thing is also efficient. Since this is a small engine and it does have enough power to get you by, it does have really good efficiency. And if you were to get to a hybrid, it is going to be even more efficient. You're going to at least easily get over 500 miles in a tank in one of these things. And for this thing, you're really comfortable, really quiet on the highway, and on top of that, really smooth. You really can't complain about something like this. And on top of that, the visibility that you get in here, I've got to say, it's really phenomenal. Like, it's phenomenal in here. The pillars, especially the A-pillars, they're actually thin to where it doesn't actually feel overwhelming where you have to look at a certain angle in order to see what is in front of you. It's thin enough for you to actually be comfortable to actually look around In the back, you actually don't have that much of a blind spot. You do have a big enough small window in the back where you can actually see enough of the side to where you can see if there's anyone else. And if you were to get an opt-out Accord, it does come with a bunch of safety features like blind spot monitoring or adaptive cruise control. All these features that you get in the Accord is available. If you don't need those features, you could get one of these, and even then, it is going to be a perfectly fine car for you to drive around in. And honestly, you can't complain about it. For this generation, it is really sad to see that the Honda Accord has changed to where it is now a conventional, boring sedan, but they did it right. And I will say, for someone who is interested in maybe getting a mid-size sedan, maybe they're debating between a Camry or an Accord, this is really not a bad car. Obviously, the new Camry just came out, and everyone's just testing those things out. And we're going to see exactly how these two compete, as they are the main competitors of each other. Obviously, Mazda doesn't have a Mazda 6 anymore, and the Nissan Altima is there, but comparing a Nissan Altima to a Camry and an Accord, it's like, I don't even know how to compare that. It's really not that comparable. Yes, the Altima is not that bad of a car, but it is nothing compared to maybe per se an Accord or a Camry. So without saying, we're gonna get to closing, and we're gonna just print everything out, and we're gonna finish up this video. Thank you for watching.
I've got to be honest, I really do miss the fact that the 2-liter turbo is non-existent with the Accord anymore. All you get is a tiny 4-cylinder or a hybrid. That's it. And as though it is a boring sedan, this is unfortunately what the competition is going into. I mean, the Camry has just came out in 2025, and all it is just a simple hybrid. That V6 is gone, and really, when it comes to the buyer that it comes to looking into an Accord or a Camry, all they want is a normal mid-size sedan. They don't need character, they don't need any specialty. They just need a simple sedan that takes them to point A to point B, and I will say the Accord does a very good job of that. Until next time.